Hey, lovelies. Happy Sunday night. Thank you for coming and hanging out. I am very excited for tonight's live because I think it's going to be good to kind of hold myself accountable, and I'm hoping to learn a few things, and I'm super excited for tonight's special guest. I am going to be so excited to be bringing Natalia Lavrova onto the screen pretty soon. I have really enjoyed Natalia's content. I think that she is definitely real and relatable, and you guys know that that is what I am all about here on my channel. Tonight, I thought we would just have a little casual get ready with me using some of our Project Pan items, because we all need those excuses to kind of like bust into those products, not ingredients. We're not making recipes here. And I just thought, you know, given Natalia's history with her love of makeup and her journey, I thought that we could all learn something from her and hopefully learn from each other as well. So if we haven't met before, my name is Kelly and I'm a professional hair and makeup artist. And here on my channel, I strive to keep beauty real. Real honest, real relatable, and real fun. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, don't forget to click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. So I just want to pop over to the comments. Thank you to everyone coming on. I really appreciate. Haley, you made a live. I'm so excited to see you here. We have let's see, we have Inara and Monica. Hey, and Jeremy's in the house tonight. We have Melly and Amanda. Thank you all for coming on. So again, I just wanted to say a quick hi to everybody, but I really do want to bring Natalia on very quickly so that we can hang out and chat. So if you haven't met Natalia, obviously you'll be getting to meet her in just a moment, but please do check out her channel. I have her channel actually linked up in the pinned comment right here on this live. She is amazing. She has some great content, and I really enjoyed her recent 40 before 40 video, and I'm sure she'll talk a little bit about that. So let's bring Natalia on. Hello.
Hi everyone. Hi Kelly. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure, 100%. I know you and I talked about this. Oh my gosh, was it like at least a month ago?
I think so, if not longer, yeah.
Yeah, trying to get everything set up and a date where I know we're both busy women trying to find those times that we can get together. And I'm so excited to have you on. I have really just been so impressed with your journey here on YouTube and, you know, hearing your story and your experiences. And I myself am trying to be better about using things up and having a more curated collection, let's say. And so I thought it would be great for us to get to talk a little bit tonight. So before we kind of like get into everything, I would love for you to sort of say a bit about yourself, about your channel, anything you'd like to share with everyone.
Sure, thanks. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Natalia, of course. I am actually a concert pianist, but I have loved beauty for probably close to a decade now. I started watching YouTube probably around that time, and that's actually how I got sucked into this beauty YouTube world. I wasn't honestly much of a makeup wearer except on stage prior to that. And things got a little bit out of control. I definitely got sucked in majorly. So even though I've wanted to start my channel for a long time, I kind of kept chickening out. And then in 2020, I decided to do a no buy year just because I felt like I really need to reel things in. And I thought, well, you know, other people have done this. Why don't I use this as an opportunity to actually start my channel? And it'll also hold me accountable, because I knew that on my own, I probably would give myself too many passes. But if I had people watching and supporting me, I felt like I would be a lot more responsible at the no buy. And it for the most part worked. So that was very exciting. So yeah, that's kind of how things started. And now I'm just trying to find a balance between buying and continuing to use things that I already own. It's been very up and down, and we can talk about that maybe throughout the night as we go. Yeah. But that's sort of kind of what my channel is about in a nutshell. It started as a no buy, and now it's migrating into sort of some balanced content of new and old.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly am so impressed. I'm speechless. I can't imagine a whole year of a no buy, but I would imagine that you learned a lot about yourself, about, you know, what you had that you really liked to use, and what maybe you realized, oh yeah, I'm even with not buying anything, I still don't want to use this. So
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
A good way to kind of go through your collection.
Yeah.
So to anyone who's watching tonight, please feel free if you have any questions, if there's anything that you want to add. We would love for this to be kind of like an open table conversation. I see a lot of people here in the chat who are big makeup lovers, and so I know that we all have some makeup to use. And I think Natalia and I will obviously be talking about, you know, some of the things that we've learned and how to really encourage ourselves to use our makeup. And I mean, I think sometimes it's just like, I just kind of forget what I have. So I've definitely found ways that it really makes me remember and appreciate some of what I have. So we'll definitely make this like a nice community convo tonight. And I think I'm just going to kind of get started, like whacking on some makeup here. So
yeah, I guess I should do the same. I'm sorry for all the shadows, everybody. It's the sunset time.
It's real life. Yeah. Maybe will we get a little sunset, like a golden hour glow going on? Maybe.
I don't know if it's very golden today. We'll see what it does. Right now, it's just creating a ton of shadow, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So let's see. Tan Bella just said, you are the no-buy queen.
Hi, Tan. Tan was actually one of my very first friends here on YouTube. She has a channel as well. And we are both New Yorkers, and she was the very first person I met here online. And I can't wait actually to make plans to finally meet her in person. We've been talking about that.
Oh my gosh, isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to think of being able to do those things again, right?
I know. There's that too.
So, like I said, I did start off and I used a couple things because I figured I'd want to be checking the chat and, you know, obviously talking to you, Natalia. So I knew that my makeup application tonight is probably going to take longer than usual, but I did go through with, where did I put it now? My primer. This is like one of those things, I was almost ashamed to put it in my Project Pan, but this is the J1 Jelly Pack, the original one. And I'm like, you know, something should probably be used up when they don't even make it anymore, you know? Like,
right.
So I had that one. And then I'm so excited because just tonight, I did it. I used up a whole product. I used up my Complexion Rescue in the shade Bamboo.
Oh, yay.
I'm like, I did it. And like I said before, I mean, I'm not panning this because I don't like it. It's actually one of my favorites, but I know that I have a backup that I want to go through. So that'll be it for the season of this one. Because I actually when I put this one on, I was like, ooh, she's like a half a shade too light. So I usually add in another shade. So I was like, yes, what a great night to actually like.
That is great.
She's going in the empties bin.
Yay. That's always, isn't it funny? Like only I think makeup hoarders understand the joys of things like hitting pan or using up a product. Like it's, to us, it's like a holiday. Everybody else is like, you're crazy. It's just garbage.
Yeah. Or they're like sad. And that's why I'm like,
right,
you know, you're a makeup hoarder when you're actually excited that you use up a whole product.
That's also like, true.
Yeah. So Molly here, she's saying that she's always so genuinely impressed by anyone who can stick to a no-buy. And that it's a real practice of self-control. Like, Molly, I think we all have moments where we have more self-control than others, right? Like,
it's true because you'd be surprised how little self-control I have in my life in general. And I don't know what it was. I think 2020 for a lot of people, like it was one of those, oh, I'm stuck at home, I'm going to do shopping. And for me also as like a musician and a small business owner, it motivated me actually even more not to buy because I knew that like income was not coming in the same, you know, all of those sort of real life stuff. So in some ways, I know for a lot of people, 2020 didn't help, but for me, it did. So I don't know how I would have done, you know, otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a good motivator, like for sure.
It was. And, you know, Kelly and I were talking about this, I think, right before we started, or maybe I even mentioned it when I first came on. But starting a YouTube channel to document it in my case, and I did that consciously. It wasn't, you know, I wanted to do it for a long time, but I think deep down, I also realized that it would just give me more excuses as to why I'm allowed to purchase things. And I really didn't want that. So instead I did the opposite. I started my channel with a no buy because I was like, well, this is what you want to do. So get creative, make it work in other ways.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think for me though, I would be so afraid that I would come off of a no buy year, almost like a really restrictive like eating plan, and then just be like, woo, because I think that is what we do sometimes.
Yeah,
it's like, well,
and I totally got there. Totally got my first few months. I was doing okay, and the past few months, that's basically where I've been. It could be worse though. I think I was even worse before my no buy year, but in comparison to where I wanted to be after my no buy, I definitely had a totally fell off the wagon moment. And I'm trying now to reel it back in and see how do I actually not go crazy.
Yeah, I think that that's understandable. And I think just like any goals that we have as human beings, it's like our goal is here. And if we only get here, we're really disappointed in ourselves. And it's easy to just be like, well, forget this then. What's even the point?
Right.
And then, but this is still better than not having a goal at all or not trying to achieve a goal. So even if
it's absolutely,
if it's like, if whether you have a low buy or you're trying to do a no buy or you just have a beauty budget, I mean, obviously we want to stick to that as well as possible, but if it doesn't happen, beating ourselves up over it only usually causes the opposite to start.
Absolutely. And the same, by the way, since we're here to kind of talk about using stuff up in project pans, the same holds true for project panning. In fact, I think it was Tan Bella here in the chat who always reminds me, like when I complain that I don't use up enough stuff, she's like, listen, using up something is better than using up nothing. Like
Absolutely.
at least you're using your stuff, because sometimes I get into like project panner community videos and people that really do it much more seriously, because I'm just trying to use things. I don't even wear makeup every day. And there are people that are very hardcore into their project panning. So I'll sometimes watch their videos just to get inspired. And instead it ends up making me feel like, oh my gosh, why am I even trying? But then you have to like say, wait, hold on, but I'm not them and I'm doing this for my reasons.
Right. Don't they say like comparison is the thief of joy?
Yeah.
So like, you might think you're doing really well and then you see someone else like, and you're like, oh, I'm really doing badly. And it's like, well, you're doing well for yourself, probably, maybe not,
right.
Comparatively. And that's okay. So we have a question from Tan. How do you stop yourself from buying things you want so badly? So like when you want something so badly,
how do you stop yourself?
Do you have any?
Well, there's different things. I think it depends on what it is and like what mindset I was in. So last year I would really try to then like remind myself how much exactly I have, because that was another part of it. And I'm still dealing with this, is the overwhelm of the items in my collection. Mm-hmm. So sometimes like if it's an eyeshadow palette, I would sit down in the evening and like open up my drawer and just take a bunch of stuff out. And even if it's just swatching or whatever, it would just really remind me like, oh my gosh, look at, you haven't used this in so long and you haven't used that in so long and you used to love this or you used to love that. Like, why do you want to add even more to compete with the items that are already sitting here collecting dust, or finding similar shades, or reminding myself that like if it's liquid products that things are going to start going bad if I buy something new and dedicate again yet another month or two to that item instead of using something that I could be using. So those are just some of the things. I mean, I feel like, they're sort of common sense, right? But for some reason in the moment, in the buying moments, we sort of let all of that reasoning go out the window and just, click buy now and think later.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, I think we've all given into FOMO, like everybody's getting it, everybody's liking it, and so sometimes it's even something that you might not have even wanted at first,
right.
Or
it's true.
Or, you were willing to look over it and then you know, whether it's because you see people starting to get it, sometimes it's that. I mean, for me, sometimes it's like, oh, pretty packaging. And I'm always like, okay, but am I taking this, whatever, let me like, okay, so like, you guys know that I love me some rose gold. So the Patrick Ta blush, like, oh, this packaging is so pretty. And it's like, well, I'm not wearing it around as an earring. You know, it's like, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know. Like, it's like, nobody's going to know that this pretty packaging is what I use today. So sometimes it's like, oh. I mean, there is something to be said for the experience of the application of makeup and how it makes you feel. So there's value in that, like having something beautiful. But I think, and I love like watching like dupe videos, or actually earlier today I was watching Kara from Beauty and the Frizz. Not that it was necessarily even a palette that I wanted to get, but she was comparing the new KKW eyeshadow palette. And she always does a great job of like pulling out other palettes that it's like, all right, what can kind of like dupe the vibes of this? And I think, you know, if there's something that we really want to get, if we take the time to go through our current collection and really be honest with ourselves and like, do I have something that is very, very similar to this?
Absolutely. Yeah. And 90% of the time, if not more, the answer is yes. Whether we admit that to ourselves or not, of course, is a different story. But
right. Monica, problem is when I get stuff out of FOMO, I'm usually really happy I bought it, like 80% of the time. Well, I mean, then I guess, you know, obviously that's not a bad thing, and it probably means you're hanging out with the right crowd, because it's people that
I was going to say, then you're watching the people that share your taste. So I guess in that way, that's fantastic.
Right. And if it's so, I mean, if you, whatever your beauty budget is, or whatever you've decided for yourself, like, and that was something that I kind of wanted to put out at the beginning of this video. Like, it is okay to have 2 blushes. It's okay to have 20 blushes, like whatever. It's okay to have 30, whatever, you know, it's just in knowing what is right for you. And, you know, and that's going to be a personal experience for everybody. And if it's like, oh, I loved getting this item, then great. And if you got it out of FOMO and you loved it, awesome. If you didn't, then maybe learn from that, you know, and because I think we've all had that happen. Hey, Locke, thanks for hopping on. I think we've all had that happen where it's like, oh, I totally just got this out of FOMO, and here's why I maybe shouldn't have gotten it, or here's why I really did like it, right? So,
well, and you brought up a great point. I think in our society, everyone is so afraid of talking about the different levels of financial stability or instability that, you know, so many of us sort of just hide under the umbrella of, oh, you know, I can't because I don't need it, or like, you know, I'll be honest. Yeah, if I had unlimited resources, maybe I still wouldn't buy everything, because of course I don't have the space, nor do I have 50 faces. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is finances. And because it's not so openly discussed, it ends up kind of being this taboo topic, which, you know, and I get it. I understand that people work hard and they want to keep certain things private, but I think it's important to remember that just because you can't get it doesn't make you inferior in any way. You can't, again, compare, as we said, comparison is, what is it? The
thief of joy, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because we don't live in a society, like, companies don't promote enjoying what you have, obviously. Companies are not out here to help us manage our finances. They are out here to sell us stuff. So,
right, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. They don't care if we have enough. They want us to get more.
Right. They want us to take out multiple credit cards and bury ourselves in debt and just keep accumulating stuff that at the end of the day is not going to pay our bills for us.
Right, exactly. Molly here, she had mentioned that she tries not to buy immediately when something launches and let it be for a few days. And a lot of times I'll forget about it or talk myself out of it.
Yes.
And FOMO totally is a real emotion. I agree, Molly. And because I do think that there's like that, like, ooh, gotta catch them all, you know, like, and so sometimes if you let that, especially, oh, I was talking to Stephen Ford once about, like, it's almost like the game of being able to get it, especially if you think something's going to be limited release or limited edition, or
it's like an adrenaline rush suddenly, right? It becomes like Yeah.
Right. It's like a dash to cart, click add, you know, and then it's like, oh, I got it, you know. So sometimes if you let that go, it's like, oh, but did I actually like need that thing? And for me, my ears are like so small that it keeps wanting to like eject my
Oh.
my earbud here. For me, I am a sucker for a sale. And so sometimes I think that sales happening is what
Don't
makes
get me
me buy.
started.
Like, I'm like, oh my God, 30% off. Like,
Don't get me
if Anara's still in
started.
here, she'll probably laugh about like Glam Shop, because I feel like Glam Shop has a sale every 3 days. And, you know, I did a huge Glam Shop haul, and then it was like a couple weeks later, it's like, ooh, a new sale. And I'm like, oh, and it's like, wait.
What did I miss? What else can I buy? Because it's
Exactly.
yeah. Oh,
Exactly.
sales and you know, I mean, you obviously can't cover all the topics in one live, but that's another reason I absolutely had to go on my no buy, because I discovered the power of TJ Maxx and their beauty sections, and the amount of crap I have bought there. It's embarrassing.
For sure. I used to be a big TJ Maxx shopper, and honestly, it was just because it was such a good deal. It's like, ooh, this thing is
Yep.
$7 and it used to be 40, and it's like,
Right.
It's
like,
if you don't ever touch that thing, you've just wasted $7, not
yes,
you know, saved. So
absolutely. I think
yeah.
it was the first time I think I heard somebody say that, like, openly on YouTube. It was just such, and I think it was either Lauren May Beauty or Hannah Louise Poston. And I remember it was like, oh, they have a point. Yes, just because it was only $10 instead of 50, as you just said, doesn't mean I actually saved $40. It means I still lost 10 unless I'm actually using that thing.
Exactly. Monica mentioned, she was talking about, you know, like the goals. So by the way, I'm reading these comments off because if anyone's like me, sometimes I'm just listening and not watching, like almost like a podcast. So she said, as for myself, I'm going to have to start saving for a down payment, and that's why I'll be buying less next year. And I think it's so good to kind of have those goals. Just,
absolutely,
you know, honestly, even if it's just, I just want to spend more money in other areas. Or for me, it was funny because the first year I ever went on my first like major vacation, I went on a cruise, and then I started counting everything in cruises. It's like, oh, okay, wait, but 2 of those is a vacation. And would I rather have this or or a vacation, you know? So, because I mean, you really can $10 here, $10 there, you know, it can really add up pretty quickly.
Absolutely, yes. For me, you know, I think as you said, like, everyone has to have like a no buy is not necessarily for anybody, or a low buy. You know, you might not, if you already have all the things you need, and this happens to be your current hobby or even career, then that's one thing. But for those of us that are really doing this purely as a hobby and get sucked in because also we have online friends doing this, we need to take a step back sometimes and put things in perspective and say, wait, hold on, I have credit card debt to pay off, or a down payment to save for, or you know, now that things are opening up, like, I want to start saving for a vacation, whatever it might be. To each their own, but we just get so quickly sucked into buy, and then suddenly all of these other experiences we could be having are no longer attainable because we just have, you know, too many pretty shiny powdered eyeshadows.
Right, exactly. I think, you know, this is my first year I've tried to do a project pan. And for me, it was when I started doing my declutter series, it was like, oh my gosh, I've had this for so long. And either I really liked it, or wow, this is almost expired, or some of those things that it's like, man, I truly just forget about what I have. And, you know, almost to the point where I'll like open up a drawer and it's like, you can't even see because there's so much stuff. It's like, okay, like what in here, you know, and maybe honestly, sometimes it's things that I used to love using and maybe my preferences have changed, or good Lord knows. I mean, being someone who's almost 40, my skin might have changed, and it might not even be something that I can even use anymore.
Absolutely.
And so,
I have things that I'm holding on to just because like it's either sentimental because it's when I first got into makeup, or I remember certain YouTubers that I used to love watching talking about it, or as we were talking about earlier, packaging. Like I have still a bunch of Kat Von D stuff from when it was Kat Von D, and I just absolutely
mhm.
loved the packaging. So I can't seem to let it go, even though I rarely, if ever, open up those eyeshadow palettes and actually use them. But I'm like, but it's so
Right.
pretty. Like, how could I possibly get rid of it?
Yes, I know. And again, what are we doing? Are we carrying it around with us as a clutch? No,
Right.
we're, it sits
Right.
in a shelf somewhere. So Locke, she just said that she appreciates the topic and was thanking us. And of course, I mean,
Oh,
it's our pleasure. But I was actually saying to Natalia, I hope Locke comes on because
yeah.
she is the queen of using stuff. Like I
Using
just
stuff
said
up.
that,
Yeah. On our
um,
Insta stories. Like,
in
I'm
our
always
Instagram chat.
seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. So Locke, I would love if we could pick your brain because you are so good. By the way, if you guys aren't following Locke Maiden on Instagram, you should go. She's lovely, wonderful, beautiful, and I really enjoy all your stories and your posts about the things that you've used, and you take the time to give us your thoughts. Um, I would love to know, do you have any tips for using because you're so good at it? So if you would drop something in the chat, I would really appreciate that. Um, so while I'm waiting for her wisdom, Natalia, what is something that you have learned through the Project Pan experience? Like, is there something that you've learned about yourself, about your makeup preferences, about, just, I mean, really anything?
Oh, a bunch of things. I've definitely learned that there are some products that I don't mind using the same thing over and over again. And then some products where I have to mix certain things in, like either from Shop My Stash or whatever new things I'm acquiring. Like, for example, something like um, foundations, although with skin changing, with, as you just mentioned, with turning 40, which I am, oh, there goes a New York siren, which I
It's not a
am,
Natalia Lavrova video if we don't have a siren.
it's not, it's really not.
I feel
Um,
like legit now.
I'm not making it up, I promise. It's New York for you. Um, so for me, like I've noticed things like bronzers and foundations, with the exception, as I was starting to say before the siren, with this year, because I've noticed my skin aging and changing with me turning 40 in just a few days. Those things I don't mind using pretty much on the daily, although, I don't really wear makeup daily, but whenever I do. And then other things, I need variety. So I'll sometimes mix things. Like with highlighters, I might still use my Project Pan highlighter, but I might layer it with something else in my collection. I'll do that sometimes with blush. For eyeshadow, I know I don't even try to pan eyeshadow. I'm panning like a bone color just because I know it's something I can set my primer with. But I'm not going to be one of those people that can pan an entire eyeshadow palette. I tried that with one that was so used last year, and I still didn't really meet my goals. So I think you kind of have to try things and see what
Mm-hmm.
works and what doesn't. The other thing for me that I've noticed is I have like a tray of my Project Pan items that is constantly on my desk. Because if I have to start looking for those items, it's not going to happen. It needs to be handy. It needs to be right there and quick and ready for me to use and throw in my makeup bag if I'm on the run and need to do it, in my car or whatever. So that's another big thing for me.
I agree. That is one thing that I learned. I actually I had to go back through. I've had to go back through a couple times and be like, what did I say in my video that was going to be my Project Pan? Because I
Right.
kind of forgot. Because, and granted, if you guys could see, actually my vanity right now looks pretty decent, but usually it's sort of like a hot mess. But the thought of having even more products sitting out sometimes, I'm like, oh. But if it's not in front of me, I'm not going to use it a lot of times. And so
Absolutely.
I find that definitely like keeping those two things out, like I completely forgot that I had put this primer in my Project Pan because I had put it back in the drawer. But now I keep out my RCMA powder, which I haven't put on yet. And, you know, a couple of those things, it's like, okay, I do want to use this. And so for me, a lot of it's been having things out. And I have found, like, because I was just rewatching bits of the video today to make sure that I didn't forget to bring anything out tonight. But I had said I wanted to start using one pressed pigment a week at least. And I have completely failed in that because I kind of forgot.
You forgot you
so
said
I
it.
didn't realize, yeah. And I just realized, like, yep, and the whole reason was because I don't use them enough. Well, so just recently, like when Glam Shop launched their like new loose pigments, I was like, they're pretty. Should I get some? I'm like, no. And Tammy Tanuka as well, another brand that just looks beautiful. I'm like, do not buy something that you're going to swap.
They're on my list to try this year, Tammy Tanuka.
Yeah, they look beautiful, but I just know I'm not going to grab things that are loose. So it's really made me realize, okay, this is probably not something that you should purchase again.
Well, that actually reminded me of the other thing. And again, it doesn't work, I'm sure, for everybody, but for me, that accountability factor is a big thing. So my latest project pan that I just am doing right now, I actually decided to do it as a game with my audience. And because of that, I am now more likely to keep track of what did I say I'm going to use, and like how, let's start like maybe with the smallest items and use those up first or whatever. I turn it into some sort of a project, into some sort of a goal-oriented situation, because otherwise, yeah, I just forget.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way. That's a great way to do things. So Locke graced us with some of her wonderful knowledge. So she said she's planning on posting how her makeup inventory has changed since 2019. She just likes saying collection when it comes to makeup because she doesn't consider herself a collector. So I think that is definitely like, I think that's definitely valuable because some people do buy things just because they really enjoy collecting them and some people really want to use it. She also said she stopped buying cream items because surprisingly, let's see, I don't use makeup often enough to use them before they go bad, which is so heartbreaking, wrenchingly heartbreaking. Whether it is a $4 item or like a $40 item,
it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Last lipstick declutter I did, like one of my favorite lipsticks had gone off. I still haven't gotten rid of it because I keep meaning to swatch things and see if I have anything similar before I go, because it was a NARS Audacious lipstick, so those things are not cheap to begin with. Yeah, I know.
Ooh, that's bringing me back to old school YouTube. NARS Audacious lipstick. I remember.
Oh yeah.
So that was on my list of things to get, and this is how far I've gone down the rabbit hole of makeup. Because at the time I was like, that is just way too expensive, but I want to get one at some point. Now here I am.
Back in those days, it was such a splurge. And now, like, I hear people say, oh, it's a $36 lipstick. And it's like, even if I don't get it, the price, they don't give me sticker shock anymore, which is a little disturbing at times. But
right. Well, and it should almost be the same thing of like, okay, whether it's, you know, $45 or 45 cents, like if we're not going to use it all up, it's a waste either way, right?
Yeah.
So we have a question. Do you think a no buy commitment should also apply to monthly subscription scenarios like BoxyCharm? So let's say if you have a no buy of regular releases, but these subscriptions stay active.
I did a no buy for everything. So I canceled my BoxyCharm actually at the start of 2020. I think I ended up getting my January one because I forgot to cancel it in time. But as soon as that email came through, that was like, you know, the charge, whatever, I was like, oh, I forgot to do that on time. I went ahead and did that just because I really wanted to not bring anything else new in and really explore what I have, because I was in that scenario where I was so overwhelmed. I didn't even know most of what I had. Right.
Yeah. I think so. I think that would be kind of a personal choice as far as
I think so.
Like the one thing for me though, because I still have BoxyCharm right now, and this month I was like, I'm gonna I'm going to like cancel it. And that's why I think that they've been sort of like souping up their, pop-up shop, because they have pretty good deals,
Right.
wide variety. And so it's almost like, that's what they do. Like the $25 subscription is your golden ticket into the pop-up shop, you know, because it's like, honestly, I don't think that I'll really get much use out of anything that was in my box this month. I did get a few skincare items in the pop-up shop, but it's like, well, okay, I have to add in then the $25 that I spent on the box, because
Well, what I would maybe do
really
if I were you is go back like a few months, or let's say we're practically at a half year mark, right? So go back and maybe see, out of everything you've bought from the pop-up shop, how many items are things you regularly use and love, and has it been financially worthwhile? Or would you have been better off buying those 2 or 3 items that you love at full price and saving yourself whatever else?
That's a really good idea. So a couple, I think Jeremy just mentioned that the freezing. So if that happens, it's probably just Wi-Fi issues. So we're doing the best we can to kind of like keep it going. So hopefully you guys will put up with us a little bit.
Okay.
Speaking of Jeremy, I did want, well, first of all, he told you happy birthday, Natalia.
Oh, thanks, Jeremy. Thank you.
And he was saying, by the way, if anyone here is new, Jeremy's my fiance, and he's watching in another room. So he had said he doesn't obviously do this with makeup, but sometimes he likes something so much that he doesn't use it, which is completely irrational of why we buy things. And that's, I mean, we've all had that. Like, so you just talked about that with your Pat McGrath palette, right?
I have a tray. I have a full tray of things that are looking at me, including that Nomad palette with all those pretty imprints. Still haven't touched it because it's too pretty. Yeah, for me, it's usually, I don't mind digging into like the more affordable things, but the really price, and maybe for me, it's like that psychology of not growing up with money and being in a career that is not, you know, ever necessarily going to bring me like the big riches. I think maybe for me, that's also part of the mental block, because if it's a high ticket item, I have a harder time. And it sort of just sits there as this trophy. Why? I have no idea.
Well, especially like those things like lipsticks, you know, if you have that expensive lipstick and it's like, because you know it's going to go bad.
Exactly.
So then you truly are just a collector. You're not a user because you're not actually using any of it. I'm just going to take a pause here while you're putting on your beautiful blue. What are you using tonight, by the way?
I actually decided to pull out the Juvia's Place. What is it? Saharan 2 palette. I heard somebody talk about it recently. I think it was Mandy Lee in her like top 5 for summer palettes or something. I thought of it today. And I was like, oh, I'm wearing a blue shirt, so I'll match my eyeshadow.
There you go. And speaking of like top 5 or whatever, that was one thing that I found really helped me. And a creator or non-creator, I think everybody could do this, is seasonally go through your stash and get a little like tray of things that you want to use that season. Because we all have things where we're like, oh, I won't be able to use this. Like, okay, so my Milani, by the way, that's what I used tonight, was the Milani Luminosa blush. I was like, oh, I should probably use this in the winter and the spring, because by the time summer comes around, I'm going to be too tan to be able to use this. And I have concealers that are too light or too dark for a different season. And so if I don't know that I'm supposed to be using it for that season, then I forget. Or like hot red blush that I have that I love to use in the summertime. I need to pull those things out and set them out so I see them and use them. And so for me, when I did my top eyeshadow palettes for spring, just going through my things and seeing what color stories I wanted to have out and available for spring, it was like, oh yeah, like I love using these. And it really made me start using those. So I think I'm going to do a summer pick.
Yeah, you should, because I loved that you then would share those looks in your Instagram stories and posts, because again, that kind of gives you also a chance to be motivated. Like you said it in video, you said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to share these looks with you guys. So then you are less distracted by the new things because you're busy using things you already have.
Yes, exactly. And I totally, I mean, it, you know, made me kind of like stay accountable.
Right.
Okay, I am using a loose pigment for the first time in months.
Ooh.
This is the MAC Melon loose pigment. So I'm gonna throw it on here as like a little highlighter blush topper situation. So we're all kind of in it together. It's like I have not used this one. It was in the back of the drawer, and that's one thing that I want to do is like change my top drawer to like things that I've had in my stash that I need to like pull out. You know, because it's like, oh, I need to see these things. They need to be readily available. And so it's like, ooh, this will work for summer because I'm a little bit deeper. So let's see. I saw a comment from Molly here that I wanted to pull up.
And I saw one from Haley that I would love to touch on at some point
about
her being an all or nothing person.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that organization is like totally key. And I think we all like right now, tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to film my foundation declutter because it's like, if I can barely close my drawer and I can't organize it, it means I have too much. And that just knowing that has made me realize like, yeah, I probably don't need to buy any foundation. If I have a drawer that I have so many that I can't even close it and get it organized, then I don't need it anymore. So I do think that like everything organized really is kind of key.
Yeah, and it's hard. Well, at least for me, it can be a little tricky because I'm in a fairly small space. So sometimes, you know, things just overflow regardless of anything else. But it's part of why I did the 40 before 40. And I decided I'm going to start with things that are really small, which are primarily like my skincare samples and things that are just standing around half used. But my plan actually is over the course of the next few months to kind of trickle that to the rest of my life, go through my clothes, go through my handbags, go through my shoes, and just start purging because it's so overwhelming. You closet after closet after closet, you just open and see all the stuff. Right. And it's like, well, when do you say enough is enough? But Haley made a point about how she has all these tabs open and how she puts things in her cart, but because she can't afford all of it, she'll just X out. And that was one of the things, I think one of the reasons my no buy also was successful, because I can sometimes be like that too. I get so overwhelmed by having to think about what I can and can't afford and having to sit there and crunch the numbers and say, oh, well, it's another reason I think my low buy has been failing this year, because I set myself a $75 a month budget and it still feels restrictive because I want to buy things, but I can't have all the things. So I've also noticed that I think I have a little bit of that, where it's like, it's not worth the stress sometimes to even try to figure out what is the hierarchy of importance in your shopping cart. And you just realize, you know what? I don't need any of it. I just need a peace of mind.
Right. Exactly. I think, and Haley, that is super smart. And I think it's also that to take the time to have the cart open and to almost like take a look even at the cart, right? Like sometimes if we don't take that minute to even look at what we have, it's almost that like, okay, I'm going to just pause for a second and think about this. But there is a lot of overwhelm. There's either like, okay, I don't know which one of these to get, so I'm just going to get them all. Right. Which happens sometimes, or it's okay, I'm not going to get anything. And the same thing, like when you were talking about, a closet full of things or like a drawer full of purses. A lot of times when there's that overwhelm, we just keep using what we're already using. And
I've been using the same one for months. And when I'm at the door, I think, oh, that other one would have been nice with my outfit. But I'm just so overwhelmed at the idea of having to go and dig it out from the, however many purses that I'm like, oh, screw it. I'm just sticking to what I know.
Right. Exactly. And sometimes it's time, It's like, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to figure out what I want to use today. And so that's one thing that I will say has been really nice about having my project pan is if I sit down and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to use this morning? Or like, I'm not like in a mood, then I just pull out what I'm like, well, these are some things that you said you want to use. And so like for me, in fact, Lockie was saying, like, she was saying that your look is like really bright and adventurous and mine is just kind of everyday. And because every time I pull out this Lorac Pro 2 palette, it's just what I go towards. You know, it's like, oh, I know this is going to be like a soft, neutral, pretty look, you know,
Yeah.
like, and
the
nice
only reason, I mean, literally all I'm using from this palette is that blue all over the lid.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else I'm using from my Tartelette and Bloom palette, which is as basic as they come.
Yeah.
I just figured, hey, I'm sitting at home having a drink, chatting with friends. Why not pop on some blue? I think maybe subconsciously I was inspired by the fact that during the Magpies episode that Rupi, Stephen, Betsy, and Nadia did earlier today, they were talking about that whole pop of blue effect, how all eyeshadow palettes suddenly look more interesting to us if they have that stupid pop of blue.
Right, that we have in 15 other palettes. But yeah, that is funny. That is really funny. When we were talking about overwhelm, I think everybody is sort of one type or another. They are either, I need major boundaries or else I can't be successful in limiting myself, or it's, hold on, I need some flex. Like I need some flex room. You know, there's like I find myself sometimes to be more of an extremist of like, okay, like I would probably be the person that's like, I'm not buying anything. And then some people were like, oh, I want a beauty budget of X dollars a month or whatever it would be. But I found it's very rare that I put myself on like a total no buy. But last year, what I did was like a 5 things I'm saying no to. And I actually did a video on it and did an update to see how well I did. But because it was like, okay, so for me, one of the things was powder highlighters. So first of all, I have a lot of powder highlighter. It takes a long time to go through any of those. And I know that for myself, it's not my preference and formula anymore. So it's like, you don't need a powder highlighter. Any shade that you could possibly want, you probably already have. So don't do that. And just having those 5 things that I limited myself to not buying for the rest of the year really helped me use what I had. It wasn't a complete no buy because I probably know that I probably wouldn't stick to that. But even though I am sort of an extremist when it comes to a lot of like control, but it was like, okay, but these 5 things I know I can control very easily. And so I think that that's kind of a good place for someone to start if they are trying to like limit things. It's like, well, what's the one thing that you know you have a lot of? Like, and I know I've noticed now that like, you know, like Fenty just released that new lip gloss. And I think lip products are going to be like popping out now that, you know, the world is kind of opening up and people are wearing masks a little bit less. But it's like, I have not, as someone who I have had to wear a mask every single day that I go into work for the last year. Same. And it's like, I have not used any lipstick. So it's like, I'm going to use what I have and probably not buy any lipstick.
I admire you for the fact that you've worn makeup. I mean, I know your profession is hair and makeup, so I guess in that way, but I don't wear makeup when I go teach. I just can't. It's already uncomfortable enough. I'm like, I don't want to deal with any more.
Yeah. I just wore eye makeup. Like I would just wear,
I see.
Like I would do my eyes and my brows and call it a day. But, you know, because I do really enjoy that. And yes, I mean, obviously being in the beauty industry, there's sort of and that's a whole other conversation we could get into, but there's sort of a stigma or an expectation of, you know, like a lot of people, if they show up and their hair and makeup artist isn't wearing any makeup and has their hair in a messy ponytail, maybe they're not going to want a service done by that person. But I really enjoy eye makeup. So that was one thing for me. And of course, here I go calling myself out saying I'm not going to buy any lip products. And I did get some of the Lisa Eldridge, but that's probably like the one thing. I have done, you know, a couple lip purchases, but it's like realizing that it's like, okay, but this is going to be the one thing that you're probably still not going to use a crazy ton of. I mean, I don't know. We all have goals and maybe we don't get them 100% of the way, but that is going to be something. And this is, so everybody that's in the chat right now, I'm not going to buy any lipstick after Lisa Eldridge for the rest of the year. I think I could do that. It's basically July. I can do that. I'm going to say that right now. I'm not buying any lipsticks.
Totally do that.
for the rest of the year.
I saw an unrelated question. I think it was Locke who asked me, what am I wearing on my neck? And
yes.
I just wanted to answer her because this is actually a very special gift. I have a friend who is a dancer, and this was years ago. He travels all over the world. He choreographs all over the world. And I believe he brought this pearl back from me from China.
Oh, wow.
So I can't really say, too much else about it, but I figured I would answer that question because it caught my eye.
Oh, and that's great because it really makes it special for you too.
It does. And I love pearls. I mean, I don't even think I knew for years that it is like the official June birthstone. I've just always loved pearls even before I knew that. And then I found out that it turns out it's also the official June birthstone.
Oh, just like it was meant to be. Yeah. Oh, I see Lucy in the chat here. Lucy, sending you well wishes and healing vibes, my friend. And she's saying she's bedridden for the next 8 weeks and still going to put on makeup every day. I totally respect that. I think if a person wants to put on makeup every day, or if they don't want to put on any makeup any day,
totally should.
You want to put on more, you want to put on less. It's all up to you. But I get that. I think that there are those times where even if so for me, the application can be very Zen-like. Like it's just like that calming, meditative moment. Wow. Did I put an extra syllable in that one? I think I did. Okay.
I love the process of putting on makeup. The problem is I love to sleep more.
Yes.
So a lot of times that's what it comes down to. And usually sleep wins.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so I'm just coming back up. I want to share. I'm loving what everybody's like sharing with us here. So Tanit said, if I can't pull the trigger or have doubts, I walk away from the cart bag. To spend so much time trying to decide is almost like money going down the drain. Yes. Yeah. Money and time, right?
Time, which is, yeah.
And I feel like if you really have to think about it that hard, if you want it or not, you probably don't.
Probably don't, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. I saw one from Locke in here. So size detours me from purchases too. If a palette is large, I start thinking, how am I going to store that? I can't travel with it.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And to a point, I think that brands are also starting to see that, because I remember for instance, like Lorac, I remember the first Pro palette was my first, like, let's say high end, right?
I think it was Sephora, for me too.
Yeah. And I just remember thinking, oh, okay. Oh yeah. I still have both of mine. I mean, this one, whoo, she's traveled with me to many a hair show, different things. She's taped up because the mirror busted. But, and then the Lorac Mega Pro came out and I got that. And it was like, this is the size of like an encyclopedia. What am I going to do with this? And so then I started to realize,
you say that, I have all 4 of them and I can't let them go, even though I never use them.
Well, and where do you even store them? Like, because I have all my eyeshadows, like,
I have one of those like plastic, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like one of those storage chests with the 3 plastic drawers, like those uglier see-through kind. Right. So the bottom one, well, I think they're all equal drawers, but it just fits. Those Lorac Mega Pros that are double the size of the regular Pros, if I stand them up, they just fit and the drawer actually still closes.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at it right now. So
it's just, let's see, what does Haley have to say here? Haley says she loves putting on makeup, but I don't do it as often because I feel I should be doing other things, editing, writing, art. There's so many times I just don't do it because I should do something else. Yeah, and I think that just like anything else, things ebb and flow. Like we get, we're like reading a book and we spend time reading that book, or we get into a show, or, we kind of like go through those phases. And But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like sometimes there are times where I'm like, good night, especially now that, you know, I am starting to be able to wear a little bit more makeup. I'm like, oh, I forgot how much longer it takes to actually put on a full face in the morning.
Yes, so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see Tan said do a palette bingo with them. There's so many palettes I should do a palette bingo with. I need to do like a palette bingo palooza or something because.
Right. The one thing that I love about doing palette bingo is it's sort of like laundry day for your wardrobe. Like when you have so much of what you love to wear in the laundry and you're like, okay, I have to come up with an outfit, and you grab a few pieces and you're like, oh, I actually really like this. I don't know that I would necessarily have paired this together if I didn't like get put in this situation, but I really like it. I think that's sometimes what palette bingo does, is it makes you use different color combos that maybe you wouldn't normally do for yourself, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I love the idea of it. I just haven't done it.
Yeah. So I would love to know, like, what from your like current project pan, and if you guys haven't, Natalia, how long are you doing that little game for with your 40?
So 40? I have 2 project pans running, but the one that's ending on Wednesday, because my birthday is on Wednesday, is my 40 before 40, where I picked out 40 really small to, you know, just products I really want to use up. And I did this sometime in, I think, end of May. So I gave myself a month, but by the time I filmed and edited, I think I only posted it like 2 weeks before my actual birthday, if not less. So, so I'm going to close the game on like at midnight on Wednesday. And it's basically, I'm asking my viewers to guess how many of those 40 products I'm going to use up. And then I'm going to do some sort of surprise giveaway when I do my final update reveal sort of video. And I haven't decided if I'm going to do that live or actually pre-film it. But I'm basically keeping track and see how many of those 40 products I use up.
That's great. Well, I have faith in you because I feel like you're pretty determined. So if anybody in here hasn't checked out Natalia's channel, now is a great time to go watch that video, see her 40 before 40, and like enter that giveaway. So I think that
and then I'm hoping to do another birthday giveaway. I also haven't figured out the format of that, but I'm gonna soon have like 2 little giveaways happening. This one, 40 before 40, and another one.
Yeah, so that's fun.
That'll be fun.
So I'm like, ooh, that would be great. I turned 40 in September, but I'm like, oh my gosh, 40 things. And obviously I know a lot of like some in yours.
You saw what I use. Yeah, I mean like sample skincare, because they were all just standing as little soldiers in my cupboard. And a lot of times I wouldn't even reach for them because I'm using other things all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one thing that I have learned in my own makeup collection, in shopping my stash, in moving 3 times in, you know, however many years. It was like, I don't add samples to my orders anymore unless it's something that I'm like, I really, really know that I want to try this, because we just get these samples and immediately it's like, when I moved, I had gallon baggies full of skincare, tanning items, like whatever. And it's like, this is so wasteful. And for me, a lot of it is the environmental impact that this all has. Like, I'm just like, please don't send me a sample that is just going to end up getting put in the trash when it expires. Like, we've got a lot of September birthdays.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of September birthdays in the house.
Woohoo! Virgos unite. So I'm the 14th of September. So we have some close ones here. So what in your project panning, or, you know, is there something that you have realized or something that, you know, has made you realize something for yourself, whether it's something that you probably won't steer towards anymore, or, you know, what is, I guess, as I like leave the screen, what is something like a little tidbit of knowledge that you've learned about yourself through doing this?
Well, there are things, whether they're through Project Pan or just years of using or not using makeup, that I've realized, like, for example, you were talking about the loose pigments. That is something that I love the idea of, but I've just realized it is not something that I will ever consistently use enough to justify buying. And for me, honestly, the other thing that we'll have to see how things go is single eyeshadows. I think because I am not a regular makeup wearer, and I'm not, even though I'm in music, I'm not in visual arts. So for me, I like the concept of somebody else creating a color story rather than me having to do it. On the flip side of it, as I've project panned and done Shop My Stash, I've also realized there's a ton of eyeshadow palettes that I don't use regularly, but maybe I should depot certain shades from and start doing things like putting together color stories when a new release comes out that will help deter me from buying new things. I know there's tons of people on YouTube that do that. I think Kendra does it, and
Kendra does an amazing job.
Yeah,
Kendra Morgan. Kendra Morgan official for anybody who's watching.
So that's something that somehow I think through project panning and Shop My Stash I've realized like that would be a huge help, is to actually dwindle things down to like the shades that I appeal, that appeal to me, that I gravitate towards. Because for me, the main thing is the overwhelm. Like I've realized that even though I'm project panning and even though I'm shopping my stash, I'm still constantly overwhelmed. So that's definitely been a huge lesson and has helped curb, hopefully for going forward as well, my buying habits.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, I mean, I got into single shadows as a makeup artist. I got into single shadows because it's nice to be able to really curate for what you know that you'll be using. But then palettes, because I mean, I like my first singles that I ever got were, I think I delved deep into the Makeup Geek original shadows because the quality was great. Like,
Same.
I mean, price was great and everything was wonderful. And then I sort of got out of it because palettes became so big and it was like, woohoo. And now I feel like sometimes eyeshadow palettes, like even if I look at this one that's in my project pan, like I probably pretty much reach for the same, there we go, probably reach for the same, at least out of this color story, which is so funny because I'm such a colorful makeup wearer and I totally went like pretty like nude and bronzy tonight, but I kind of go for the same ones. And so I feel like most of us, like, remember when, oh my gosh, the contour palettes, the like highlight and contour palettes came out, like the Anastasia, the Kat Von D one, everybody was getting them. And then it was like, this is so stupid because unless you are a working makeup artist,
exactly,
or you're never going to use all those shades of it. And so it's like, we really need to look at eyeshadow palettes the same way. And so that's one thing that single shadows can do really nicely. But there also comes that point where you just have so many single shadows, whether it's you're trying brand to brand and you have like 4 of the same coppery shade or whatever. And again, like having like for me, I've learned that I want my single eyeshadows to have clear tops to them so that I can see them. Because again, it's another, like, if it's a mystery black shadow palette, then I'm never probably going to reach for it because I don't even remember what's in it. And then just realizing it's like, okay, but don't get so crazy down this that you're not using any of them anyway. And again, with the overwhelm, when it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to grab this palette because I've got so many eyeshadows over here that I don't know what to do with myself. So I think there's like this cycle of like what we think is going to be best. Is it a palette? Is it singles? Is it a little bit of both? Maybe you have one palette that you grab for every day and keep a few singles out. Like every season, we were talking about seasonal products. Maybe you have your one standby palette and then you bring out 4 or 5 pop shades. You pull out like Halo Moon for, spring and summer, and then, you pull out something else. So I think it's just really a big part of it is that, like, see it so you can use it. And if you start having so much that you can't even see it anymore, then maybe we have to rethink.
And it's, I'm seeing Lucy mention things like, she uses it as a mechanism, shopping as a mechanism for depression. That's the thing, like we're talking about makeup, but at the end of the day, a lot of these issues that we're discussing really are much deeper rooted, and very few people capable or willing to be honest with themselves and really understand, well, where are these things stemming from? Because that takes a lot of work. That takes lifetimes for most of us. You know, I mean, I don't mean to get that deep, but at the end of the day, it can be like all of our habits stem from somewhere, and whether we want to acknowledge that or not, you know, if you are one of those people where it is just like a very lighthearted hobby and you can sort of stop and start anytime you feel like it, then great. Mm-hmm. But for those of us that are having this conversation, most likely that means we have some insecurity about the amount of things we are accumulating. So that means it probably goes beyond just, oh, I just want all the pretty shiny things, you know.
Right. So right. And there are a lot of, you know, a lot of different reasons. And we all know we are coming through a time period that has been a big stressor and emotional for a lot of us. And there are coping mechanisms there that, you know, and there are worse things, right?
Absolutely.
But, you know, there is a time where we all, and for me, it's just like, I have so many pretty things that I just kind of forget about having it. For me, it is.
And then you feel this guilt. You're like, you're so pretty. I'm not using you.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I forgot about you. I've abandoned you. And, and I think
sorry.
that there is, yeah, exactly. There's a joy in using something that you kind of forgot that you had, you know? And so, I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with buying new things.
No.
I know for myself, especially as a content creator, and, you know, I mean, this is sort of, I can't say it's my job because it's not like I'm really getting paid that much, but, you know, like as it being, you know, part of a hobby or whatever you want to say, an interest, you know, there will be things that I will pick up, but knowing that instead of this, it's going to be more like this. And I've always said that for my channel, I will not buy things just to review them if I don't think that either I would use them personally or put them into my kit.
Yes, and that's very wise, because I know a lot of people end up falling into that trap being on YouTube, and that I can't imagine, like the overwhelm. And there was a part of older YouTube where people just got way too much stuff, way too much PR, bought too many things. I mean, even if you look at some really large YouTubers, who was it? Was it like Jessica Braun, who was one of the first people to basically refuse PR for a while because she just realized it's getting really out of hand?
Yeah, I think Samantha Rovendal was the first person that I saw do that. And
maybe
it was a big part of it was like environmental. Yeah. And then I think a lot of people, you know,
and then I think people followed. Yeah.
Right. And I think, you know, as a content creator, you know, because a lot of people say, like, I wish there were more like tutorials, or I wish there were more things about things that we already have. And sometimes people don't do it because it doesn't get as many views, and it really doesn't. But is that because there is still more, people are still forcing more of that consumerism? I feel like it's a duty, if it's something that we truly believe in, to have things where it's like, okay, well, I want to focus on reining it back in and using what I have. And so maybe if because let's face it, like, trends are just made by ordinary, you know, it's like, it's more like I guess like a collective interest, right? And if we really do all have a collective interest in using some of the things that we have and kind of remembering that, you know, if more people did things like talking about, and Project Pan, I think sometimes, and I love how you mentioned this in a conversation we had, where it shouldn't necessarily be about hate panning.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be about
should not be about,
I hate this product.
No.
I need to use it up. You know, it should be about.
That's another thing, definitely. You know, when you asked me what I've learned, I should have included that, because that is something that if you really love something, use it. Put it in a Project Pan and use it, because you're going to be so much more successful. And then it'll kind of start that ball going. Because I remember with my very first Project Pan, I made sure to put like some easy products in, because we all need that little bit of like a pick me up, like, oh yes, I did it. Now I can do more. So
exactly.
yeah.
It's there's those, it's great to use something up if it's something that you enjoyed using. And if honestly, if you don't enjoy using it, most of us have more things that we could be enjoying, right? Like
Absolutely.
I had put this ColourPop no filter concealer in my project pan, and I used it like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, I don't like this,
Yeah,
and
so
it's
then
like, so I'm not going to, and I just have kept it around to talk about this in a video. And I'm going to be doing my, my declutter just to chat about it, because I think it's sort of like valuable to hear about formulas or whatever. But it's like, well, I'm not just going to keep using it because I said I would use it. It's because I have 10 other concealers that I know that I do enjoy, that I'm going to move into now. And then now I know, and honestly, I am older. I am whatever, maybe my makeup preferences have changed since I did use this. And so to be able to update people, hey, it doesn't work for my skin anymore.
right.
And then you
That's
move on.
important.
But like, I think that like panning something just to use it up is also kind of wasteful. It's wasteful of our time and our energy. And then like, why do you want to look like a crusty, wrinkly person?
Right, exactly. And that's like a life lesson, as we were talking about, even with shopping carts, the all or nothing thing. Like I've had to learn that, because I have a very hard time letting go of products if they haven't been fully used up. I am the gal that's going to cut into her tubes and scoop everything out, and there are times where you just have to say, okay, enough. Like you're not enjoying this. Just let it go. Just
right. That like one application of body lotion that you're not getting out of that pan is going to be okay, right? So we've had quite a few comments here. I love that everybody's been enjoying this conversation. Thank you to everyone who's joined in for our real talk tonight.
Thank you. And I am reading. I can't hold several conversations at once. My multitasking skills at my ripe age of 40 and 3 days they're no longer there.
Well, I'm a hairdresser. I'm supposed to be able to talk to my client, hear this one over here, remember what's going on later. Like it's all good. But thank you to everybody who's joining in and has contributed to the conversation. I love that, we're all talking about this and can kind of, bounce ideas off each other. And that was, I obviously, like, if you guys saw the thumbnail for this video, I titled it Real Talk, because I would really like to have more of these conversations with amazing people like Natalia and some of the other creators that are on here. So if there's conversations that you guys would like to see, drop them in the chat, because I think that, I started a channel to, talk about a love of beauty, but, like, I know in this whole, like, keep beauty real, like, it wasn't just a tagline. It is my initials, but it was really like what I wanted to do, and keep it accessible and less intimidating, and also just have those honest conversations about what goes on in the beauty space and what goes on in our own beauty lives.
Thank you, Locke, for the super chat.
Locke, my goodness, you are such a sweetheart.
That's so nice.
Oh, I love rewatching for motivation. Yes, that'll be good. I will need to do that as well. I loved rewatching my Project Pan video, because it was like, oh yeah, this is what you said you were going to do, and you kind of get pumped up again. So we can all keep each other like motivated. And definitely, like, we should all, because I know a lot of the people that are in the chat right now are, if not on YouTube, they have social media on Instagram or some of these platforms. And so, if anybody wants to drop their info, we can all follow each other. I do also have the hashtag KeepBeautyPanned on Instagram, so we can all like kind of keep up on each other's progress through all of this, and the things that we learn.
And there are tons of panners in the community. If you need the inspiration and the motivation, I know, like, one of the things one of the people I followed, or well, it's a duo. It's the gals that have also the weekly makeup show. It's Kat and Haley. What is their channel? Gosh, I forgot now. They do like familiar. They're Australian. They do like a weekly makeup, kind of like a Will I Buy It or a makeup spotlight. I can't remember what their actual tagline is, but they also started a Project Pan, and it was like something like Team Project Pan, and they've been doing it for at least 2 or 3 years, if not longer, where they choose a product from every single makeup category, like in order of how you put it on your face or whatever. And they keep track, Beauty News or something. Yeah, Molly, I saw, I think it is called Beauty News. So like that's just two examples. But there are tons of people who do monthly updates, who do specific project pans just for cream products. One of the gals I've been watching for years is Alejandra. Oh gosh, what is her last name now? I'm blanking. Tan would know if she is still here. She could probably put it in the comments because I think we both watch her. But she even calls herself an eyeshadow enthusiast with a dash of Project Pan, because she kind of over the years realized what works, what doesn't, and now she's found that perfect balance. So it's just trial and error like anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that Locke said these conversations are not to stop one from buying, but more to be mindful of what we buy and to truly enjoy them. And that's, I mean, that is exactly the truth. And,
absolutely,
you know, and also to realize that we will have those times that we realize that maybe we bought something that we didn't necessarily need to, or maybe we didn't need 3 of those lipsticks. Maybe we only needed 1, and it's a growing experience. And so I never want to be someone to guilt someone or to make people feel pressured or less than, because like we said in the beginning of you know our time tonight, Natalia, if using something 10 times was our goal and we ended up using it 8, we should celebrate that, not feel defeated, because it's better than not using it at all, right? So I think that it's, you know, definitely,
absolutely,
because it's very easy to beat ourselves up. And you know, you had said that you had a it was Tan that was saying like, hey, you used it. Like we all, in so many ways, like we all life.
And then you learn how to adjust. Like you might go from, oh, I want to use this up completely, to, oh, I want to hit pan, or, oh, I want to just use this 20 times this year, or whatever it might be. You kind of adjust to what works for you, for your schedule, for your preferences.
Exactly. So. Exactly. It's a learning curve. And, you know, we all, humans in general, if we could be as kind to ourselves as we are to our close friends.
I know.
I mean, we wouldn't be doing stress shopping or like, you know, like some of these things, because I think we're a little hard on ourselves. And, you know, it really is about a growing experience in life, and just, you know, really realizing some of those things. And I have loved learning from you, Natalia. And I think that is one thing that I love about the beauty space is honest, whether it's a creator or a non-creator, just someone who's willing to openly be like, yeah, I tried this and I wish that I hadn't, or, you know, some of these things where it's like, this is what I've learned. This is what I find that doesn't work for me. This is what I find that does. And that's my favorite thing about having started a channel, is it's just
absolutely. And I think part of it also is realizing like how many of us have the same thoughts, same issues, same battles with ourselves. Because honestly, I mean, I've gotten comments that have been so sweet, like, oh, you're so inspirational. Like even tonight in the chat, so many people that are so supportive. And I'm over here thinking like, I'm just a regular gal. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm just rolling with the punches and trying things out, you know.
Well, we're all just regular gals and guys, and, you know, just
I know, but I guess because there's like that screen in between you, all you see is, you know, the snippets of the person, and you kind of forget that, hold on, like we're all going through the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you came on here. Thank you so much for
having
me. I want to just throw it out there. If anybody has a question or a comment that they want to make sure that gets out there, let me know. You can drop it in the chat. But before we get to that, Jeremy had asked a question: what is the most embarrassing trend? And I saw that it was in the chat and a couple of people had commented, but because we were talking about trends and starting trends, or, you know, avoiding trends. What is the most embarrassing trend that you have been part of, Natalia?
What is the most embarrassing? You know, I'm not too into trends, to be honest. And I'm not one of those people that's like brave enough to try the things I'm not very comfortable trying. Like I never, you know, there are things I want to try, like the whole reverse foundation technique thing that was going around for a while. I have not tried that. Let's see, what has most embarrassing trend I have tried. I don't know, maybe like too much contouring back in the day. Way too much
yeah.
concealer is probably my most embarrassing. That whole triangle thing, I would have to probably actually pick that if I had to just pick one.
That's probably like one click down for me. The thing, and I talked about this in my like lipstick tag, but it was the really, really dark lip liner and the really frosty lipstick.
Oh.
It was so bad. And you don't blend it. You don't get like a little ombre effect. You just get the nice outline. So we've all been there. And I hope Natalia, that we can start the trend of mindful shopping,
yes,
mindful
spending, mindful shopping.
Yes, exactly. And now we're all going to be so inspired. It's sort of like watching a clean with me or an organize with me video. We're all going to be like, yes, I'm going to organize my stash, and I want to challenge everybody to pull out a little baby like shop my stash for this next week, right? It's Sunday night. We can all do this, get ready for the week. If you have a couple products that you're going to use, share it with us. Tag Natalia and I on Instagram if you take a little picture so that we can see your little like baby shop my stash for the week. I think that's a good way to start off the week.
That would be great. Yes.
All right.
Let's do it.
So do you have any nuggets of knowledge or anything that you'd like to drop before we go, Natalia?
Gosh, I mean, I think we covered quite a lot. Just you know,
sure.
do you, and try not to get suckered into what other people are doing, I think is really the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you again to everybody who joined in the chat. For the record, I always go through afterwards and like rewatch just so I can catch all the comments. So I'll definitely be looking for real talk episodes in the future. Natalia, I'd love to have you back again for that, because this has been amazing.
I'd love to be back, and I'd love to go back and actually read through the comments as well, because I feel like I've missed so much.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's multitasking, right?
Yes.
So thank you all so much. Again, I'd love to see your little mini shop my stash. I'm going to go through some of my things. My Project Pan video is up. Natalia's is up. I have, again, her channel is linked at the top of this chat, but it's also down in the description box, and so is her Instagram. So I'd love to have everybody, like, we can all do this together and use some of our makeup up. Team, use my stuff. Yes. So, all right. I hope you all have a great night and a wonderful week ahead. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you really soon. Bye, guys.